Hello, everyone. I did have slides, as you can see, but we're just going to skip through them merrily. And also, I'm going to give you a bit of background about myself as well. So I'm a Walthamstow native. Came from Whipps Cross Hospital in Leytonstone, when a few stops down to Walthamstow, and I didn't leave that address until about 37 years after. I wanted to stay in Walthamstow, Yvonne, but I couldn't afford to. So, yes, so I had to leave. But yes, I've been working in IP for 15 years. I like meddling in people's businesses by helping them sort out their brand protection issues. I like, as JC said, helping clients protect, select, exploit, and enforce their brands. I'm part of a bigger firm. I'm actually a rebel. I'm an employee. But like BB was saying, I do have some comforts with some passive income. So that's at least, but I need to think about whether I need to stand in line next to the beggars. So I might not be sleeping well tonight. I have to think about that. But yeah, my dad thinks that employees are like some of the saddest people on the earth. So I'm an employee as an act of rebellion, just against my dad. But basically, I thought I would talk to you today about brand protection because those of you who already have businesses, have already set up businesses, you know the important things that you need to do when you're setting up your business. You've got to think about marketing, funding, getting your domain name sorted, setting up the company name, or if you want to leave it unincorporated, but everything that you have to think about. But all of these important things don't actually protect your brand and make sure that if someone steps to you and they start taking the mick, you can't do something about it. So I think in the program, I've already given a short overview of how to protect your brands and the importance of them. But I thought it would also be helpful to provide some information, which I only found out about 2 days ago, which is from some European intellectual property offices and the information they've given. And I have to read the quote here because it's 3 lines long. So SMEs, that have filed at least one intellectual property rights are 21% more likely to experience subsequent growth and 10% more likely to become a high growth firm. The likelihood of experiencing a high growth period is 9% higher for SMEs that have filed at least one patent and 13% higher for those that had filed at least one trademark. And today the talk, which I'm going to skip through quickly, is going to give you an overview of IP. I'm going to focus on trademarks because that's my speciality. And then I'll think about the considerations for seeking protection with your brands, the registration process, and what to think about once you've got your registration. We have 5 types of IP, and I've provided a bit more detail in the article itself. You've got trademarks, copyrights, design and patents, and trade secrets. And with trademarks, the whole function of trademarks is to distinguish the goods and services that one person produces from those that another business produces. And there are various types of trademarks: words, logos, signs, anything that you can protect that helps distinguish your products from those that other people provide, you can protect it. And what they give is protection, which is basically an exclusive right with certain limits. You can use your registration to stop a third party from using a brand that is identical or similar to yours or covers identical or similar goods and services. And in comparison to unregistered rights, because there are loads of people who don't have registered trademarks. But the thing is, when you have a registered trademark, you can just wave your certificate in front of someone and go, look, I've got a registered trademark. And usually it at least gets them to at least think about what they're doing. Whereas if you haven't got registered rights, we rely on something called passing off. And there you have to show that you have goodwill in your sign in the UK. But it costs a lot of money to actually go through and get all of that evidence, which is over usually a significant amount of time. So actually, in the long term, it's cheaper to register your trademark than to rely on your unregistered rights if you ever have to enforce them. And that's why we encourage that as well. And that's just one of the benefits. Another benefit is also that, it gives your business more prestige. it's a form of property. It's an intangible piece of property, but it is a form of property that can be used as collateral, and it gives your business more credibility if you want to sell it or if you want to take collateral against it. Even though as black businesses, that's going to be a challenge, but at least if it's another bow to your string to your bow, even better. And in terms of protecting your brand, these are the questions that I ask people when I meet them or when they call over the phone. I'm like, what is your brand now? What goods and services do you sell now? And what goods and services are you looking to sell over the next 3 to 5 years? Because I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I just protected what you were providing now. If in year 2 you're looking to provide something else, then we need to make sure that we've got all of that covered so that you're future-proofed and you're not spending money filing another application in a few years' time. And also, where will your business operate geographically? Is it just the UK? Are you going to be in the US? Are you going to be in Malaysia? So then that's also for us to think about where we can get protection. But then also, in these territories, are you actually free to use the mark that you've selected? And other considerations are you already using the brand already? Or are you going to launch the brand, in a year's time, in 6 months' time, because if you've got a long lead time, then we've got a bit of time to play around to select a mark that is appropriate for your business and that's available to use. And also budget and what your future plans are for the business. Some businesses have their service provision tied to the business name, whereas a few others aren't tied to the actual business name. They have the business name and they also have different brand and service provisions so that in future you might want to sell that off or hive it off, and then you have that flexibility. And the registration process is basically we take all the information that we've gleaned from the questions that I asked before, and then we draw up a filing strategy to kind of go, okay, this is your budget. Maybe we stagger the applications at this date, a month this, and a year this. These are the goods and services that we think best offer you the protection that you need over the next few years. And then we take all of that information, we prepare an application, we submit it, the registry reviews it. There are various criteria that they go through. If they have any objections, they raise it. We try to resolve it with you by talking through our options. If there are no issues, it's accepted and advertised for third parties to have a look at the application details. So basically, it's a beauty parade for 2 to 3 months to put your head above the parapet and say, this is my application. Does anyone have a problem with me using or registering this trademark? In the UK, it's about 5% of applications that are objected to. So 95% usually sail through. And even with objections, we try to settle them amicably, because who wants to spend their time getting into a fight when you don't really need to? So if we need to amend the mark, and that means we'd have to refile a new application, or if we have to restrict the goods and services, we do that. So assuming all goes well and there are no oppositions, then you get your registration certificate. And you kind of think, right, well, I've got my registration certificate, what now? It's renewed every 10 years, and it can be renewed indefinitely, unlike a patent. And the cautionary tale that we provide to clients is use your mark, because if you don't, after 5 years, it becomes vulnerable to cancellation on the basis of non-use. So it can be completely or partially. So that's why we only apply to register goods and services that you're going to use now or in the next 3 to 5 years, because there's no point looking at 10 years' time if you're not going to launch a certain brand or service provision until year 7. And also, make sure that you're keeping an eye on what other businesses are doing, if they're brands that are kind of encroaching into your area or that you think might be identical or similar to yours, because you can use your registration to put a stop to that. And also, in some instances, you can use a mark that's identical or similar, but in relation to completely dissimilar goods and services if you have a reputation for that brand. And one of the things that we also offer is that we offer a trademark watch service. And that's basically, it sounds a bit gossipy, but that we have a system that is just monitoring all applications that are being filed all over the world. And if the applications that are identical or similar to what you've registered, we raise that and flag it to you and go, what do you want to do? So then you approach them and go, are you going to back off or not? Hopefully they do, and usually they do. If not, then we have to file an opposition. And for those of us who sell goods across borders, we also have a customs application for action, and that's usually you providing information on all your IP rights that you have protected, be it patents or trademarks or design rights, and you provide information about your branding to the customs agencies, so that all the goods that are coming through the border, they can have a look at them and see whether the branding that might be similar to yours or the IP rights that might be similar to yours are actually yours and not someone trying to send in counterfeit goods through the border. So if they do appear to be counterfeit, those goods will be stopped, you'll be alerted, and if they are indeed counterfeit, then they're destroyed. So you're making sure that only genuine goods come through the borders. And also, a bit of active income here. If you have a trademark and you have, for example, like Wilfred was saying about setting up stores, if he wants to go into franchising, then at least you give someone permission to use that mark, but within certain restrictions. And also you can make money off that as well. So you license those rights. And if you're actually done with the brand completely, you can assign it and sell it off. So it's property. It's just you can't see it. That's the beauty of intellectual property. It's just intangible, but you can make a big buck out of it if you would like to. And this is one last slide, and I'll give you updated figures. To be honest, you can file a trademark application yourself. You don't need me to do it. But based on the applications filed in 2020, and I have updated figures on my sheet here instead of these ones, self-filers were 3 times more likely to meet a refusal than representatives like us. So in 2020, the average success rate was 6.7 registrations to each unsuccessful application. Actually, the figure is that self-filers, it was 4.6% success rate. So for each successful registration, there were 4.6 applications that were refused. But for chartered professionals like me, it was 14.6%. In 2021, it was 4.6% for self-filers, but actually for professionals like me, it was 21.8%. The reason why I raised this is because it is cost effective for you guys to do it yourself. But I get frustrated as a professional when you've done it yourself and it doesn't go as smoothly as you want to, and then you have to spend more time and money coming to me when you're actually 6 months after you've launched your product, or you've launched your product and then you have to rebrand because you didn't do a trademark search to find out if the mark was available to use in the first place. And then we're having that conversation. And in my 15 years of experience, I have had those uncomfortable conversations. And even though it's not my business, it's not my baby, it still hurts and it still bites. So it's important to consider this to be a business investment and treat it as such. And if you can outsource it, please do. But the UK registry also does have some helpful information. And you don't have to come to me. There's a Chartered Institute of Trademark Attorneys. There are loads of us. So you can contact them. But that's enough from me. So thank you very much for your time.